welcome back, Derek. It's been at least 3 months since we even recorded anything to do with a video. Can't believe it's taken us this long to figure it out, but it has.
Yeah, I know. It's nice to be back, and it's been a long 3 months. It's been obviously an interesting time all around, but hopefully things will start slowly getting back to normal, and it'll be interesting to get an opportunity to watch hockey in the summer. That's gonna be it's gonna be like being in Florida. I guess this is what the Floridians are like when they get to watch hockey and it's nice and sunny outside, and they go into a hockey rink for a few hours. So it's gonna be an interesting next couple of months to see how it all kind of pans out, and hopefully we can get to playing some hockey and talking about some sports and playoffs.
Well, and the thing is that no one will be going into an arena. They'll be watching it on their, TVs, or heck, even their phones outside, like I am, and that'll be a whole new experience. I mean, obviously the road to now, where the NHL is contemplating, it's looking more and more real all the time. It's not a given that they're going to be even doing this, but it's a pretty good chance, from what I can tell, that they are. Because why would they go to all this trouble? Why would players be skating? Why would they go to, jumping through all these hoops? How real is it? Is this, what's the chance? Is it more than a 50-50 chance that they're actually going to be able to pull this off?
I think it is, and I think they're looking at all the protocols, and I like the idea of the hub cities. I really do. I think that really kind of takes away a lot of the stresses of traveling from different markets, and where different places are handling the virus in different ways. And there's hotspots all around North America right now, and some places are safer than others. So I do like the idea of the hub cities. I think that was a good idea that the NHL and the NHLPA came up with. I think it's important to get the hub cities right. And I think it's important to do things right once you're there. I think safety has got to be the number one issue, because the last thing this league wants is to have an outbreak of 2 or 3 players per team suddenly coming down with COVID and having to shut the whole thing down. And I think it's going to make for an interesting atmosphere. If they can pull it off, if they can get to the right places. I know they won't have any fans in the stands, but I think it could be a real interesting summer, because everything else has been canceled this summer. There are no big soccer tournaments this summer. Tennis is on hold. All the other sporting events on hold. So if the NHL can be one of the few events to kind of get going, I can see street parties and patio parties and viewing parties outside in the summer. And I envision right now, if the Oilers are playing on a nice sunny afternoon, I can see bars and restaurants trying to cordon off some space outside, setting up bars outside, setting up big screens outside, and really kind of making it a fun public atmosphere. And I think that's kind of what the NHL is looking for. I know it's going to be different without any fans in the stands. I know at this time last year we'd probably be celebrating a Stanley Cup winner already, and it would have been a pretty fun April and May. But now I think it's something different, and I think fans should embrace that. They get an opportunity to watch your teams play on TV, and maybe you can throw some outdoor parties and have a barbecue outside and watch hockey at the same time. I think somehow, I know here in Canada we don't get that much of a summer, so we try to make the most out of it. But I think this is going to be quite unique and quite interesting, and I really hope people embrace it.
Now, the hub city question. Right now, there's all these, potential cities that are in the mix. Edmonton's one of them, Vancouver, Toronto. In the States, Las Vegas is one of the cities. I've read, in various places and heard that, when it comes to the television side of things, is it true that the TV networks, when NBC's got the rights in the States, Sportsnet up here, would they prefer to have it hosted in the U.S. city? Does it really matter where it's being held? Because, they're not going to have the team logos on the ice, probably. In fact, I can almost guarantee you they won't. It'll be very neutral, because you'd have a number of teams playing out of one hub. It's 12 teams if they're going with the 2-city model. So whether you're broadcasting from Edmonton or Chicago or from Las Vegas or Vancouver, does it really matter where it's being held? Is there something to that?
Well, I think when it comes to the hub cities, I think what they need is the hotel space to kind of bring in 300 and some players, including staff and things like that, 500 and some people. But I think you look at that Vegas model right now, and I think that they want to go to Las Vegas. I think Las Vegas fits the model because you can kind of really close off some of those hotels and kind of have that little bit of a bubble, create a little biosphere for say. And I think you can do that to an extent here at Edmonton. But there's a lot of questions where it comes with the hub cities. There's a lot of questions that comes with players, and I think players have brought up this concern as well. If you're a player, do you have to leave for 2 months and leave your family behind, leave everyone behind, be in a bubble? What if I'm a player that has a young family? What if I'm a player like some of these other guys that are expecting in the next few months and their wives are expecting to have children? What if I'm a player that just doesn't want to be away from his kids for 3 months? Are you allowed to bring them to Vegas? Are you allowed to bring them to the hub cities? Even if you don't have direct contact with them, having them in the same cities, would that work? So I think there's a lot of logistics to be involved. As far as the games themselves and the production, I don't think it matters. I don't think you even have to be in an NHL rink. I think early on they were talking about going to North Dakota and kind of bubbling themselves there and using that arena in North Dakota. I think that's a situation that, you could see that because if you don't have fans in the stands, there's no point of having and you don't really need an NHL size rink if you can have the production values or the places to make those productions possible. So I think there really isn't a lot of advantages to being a hub city. I know Edmonton is pushing hard to be a hub city and preferably I don't have a problem with the Oilers saying, hey, we want to be a hub city. This is what we can provide. I don't necessarily like politicians weighing in and really kind of pushing for that. I think, when it comes to the provincial government and the municipal government here, I think they have bigger fish to fry right now than to worry about whether or not the NHL comes to the city. I'm not sure about the economic benefits of it. Will there be some? I'm not sure. No one's going to be in that rink anyway. They're going to have the hotels for sure, maybe. But I think the NHL has to do what's best for the NHL and has to do what's best for the players. And I know that some cities are lobbying to be this hub city, but you look at the situation. Imagine if Edmonton was picked as a hub city, but the Oilers didn't play in Edmonton. Would it be worth it? What would be the point? And so I think you have to look at consider a lot of factors before you select a hub city. But I do like the idea of a hub city, but to be honest, I don't think it really matters what hub city they choose because there are no fans in the stands and it's going to be very, very enclosed and you're not going to see the players be walking around town, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, outside of, hotels that host teams, caterers that would provide meals and, whatever facilities teams need while they're in a city. Obviously you have to work all those things out as far as where everything's placed and, how, getting people around if they have to be bused from one place to the other or whatever. I just, thought that if the NHL preferred a U.S. city just for, optics sake, like NBC is saying, live from Vegas, the NHL Stanley Cup Finals, as opposed to saying from Edmonton, even though, it doesn't matter because the arena is pretty much a moot point. There's a whole lot of questions that you can't answer and no one has an answer for yet. I mean, the prospect of players being away for 2 months, if not longer, if they're playing in the U.S., can their families even come down? Would they even be allowed to do that?
Yeah, that's the question. There's a lot of questions there, and the thing that gets me is they talk about the economic benefit of a city, and I'd hate to see, like, the NHL is a business, and so if you're vying for someone's business to go to your city, you have to give them incentives, and I'd hate to see the province say, well, we'll pick up the tab for the hotels or we'll pick up the tab for these buses to ride. Like I wouldn't want to see any taxpayer money helping this out because I think that would be wrong because I think there's other areas that, especially right now, that need that. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, if the NHL is willing to pick up the tab on everything, perhaps, it would be worth it to come here. But suddenly, if you're spending any tax dollars on picking up some of those tabs for the NHL teams, I think that's when you get into a real gray area there, and I think you really have to kind of watch that. And I think the NHL is going to do what's best for the NHL, and I think they're all in their right to do that. They're going to do what's best for their league, and they want to get this thing off the ground. I think hockey fans want to see this thing get off the ground, and it's going to be interesting. And I know there's a lot of smart people working on this and trying to get it together and trying to put it together. I just don't think they need those outside voices trying to influence them. They know what they're doing, and they'll probably get it right.
And another thing too is that obviously some teams are going to get eliminated in that play-in round, and teams are going to, obviously they're not going to be there for 3 whole months. Some teams are going to be going home within a month. In fact, most of them will. They're not going to be gone very long. So, maybe it's not that big a deal. Maybe you worry about the conference finalists or the Stanley Cup finalists when it comes to, so-and-so misses his family or the family misses him, and that's understandable. Obviously there's a long road to the Stanley Cup finals any given year. It takes almost 3 months when there isn't a pandemic, never mind when there is one. So a story that came out was yesterday, or an angle to the story, was the prospect of the Oilers holding training camp in the U.S. as opposed to holding it at home, just because, and obviously you have to wait and see where the hub cities would be. But if it's going to be in the U.S., they'll want to go to the U.S. as I would imagine as soon as they can, so players can, come back from Europe or come in from Canada, wherever they may be, and clear any of the quarantine hurdles and go from there. Because if you're coming to Canada to play, you have to quarantine yourself for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that's another issue too. So I think the NHL wants to announce the hub cities sooner than later, I believe, and then teams can start planning around that. So let's say Vegas is a hub city, and they say, okay, all the Western teams will play in Vegas, and that includes the Edmonton Oilers. So if the Edmonton Oilers have to go to Vegas, I think then they can kind of make arrangements to have a training camp in that area or around there. They can go down to I don't know, somewhere around Vegas into that area and maybe kind of hunker in there and then work from there, as opposed to bringing everyone to Edmonton and then flying down as a group. So, yeah, I think the quicker they announce what hub cities they want to work in, and I'm sure they'll announce a couple of hub cities, and then they'll have a couple just in case. If it doesn't work out, there's always going to be contingency plans. But I think teams do want to set up. Training camps are now going to be open July 10th, so that's a little under a month now. And I think teams, they have to make arrangements of where to have those training camps, because I think the teams will want to have some of those training camps close to those hub cities, so then they're ready to go. And of course, the league also wants to have 2 exhibition games before they get into this play-in round. So that's going to be interesting to see how they do that. Are those going to be in the hub cities? Are those going to be somewhere else? Who's going to play who? Like, that's a lot of exhibition games to plan. You got 24 teams playing 2 exhibition games. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all works out. But I think, yeah, the very first step is let's lock down these hub cities, and then teams can start saying, okay, if it's not in Canada, then they'll probably go and have their training camp in the States. And if it is up here in Edmonton, I'm sure the Oilers will have the training camp here in Edmonton. If they're playing here, that's another question that the league was talking about, is the team in the hub cities won't necessarily get to play in their own city. And if the Oilers do play here, they won't be able to go home and do the things that they would normally do. They'd be sequestered in a hotel room as well. So a lot of questions still to be answered, but I think the fact that we are kind of seeing our way on the other side of this is positive, and hopefully in a couple of months we'll be watching NHL hockey.
One question I have is the ice itself. Typically NHL arenas take their ice out in the summer. That's true whether you're up here in Edmonton or whether you're down in Miami, of course. Would the ice conditions somehow be a factor? I mean, whether it's training camp or whether it's a game, and particularly when they get into games, when potentially the ice surface gets used multiple times a day, would that be a concern for injuries?
It might be a concern, but I think what helps is the fact that there won't be any fans in the stands. So you can keep that building as cold as possible. I remember covering the 2006 Stanley Cup final, and it was 36 degrees or 37 degrees the day of Game 7 in Carolina. And that building they had it cold. Like, it was cold that morning skate. You almost have to wear a parka because it was that cold in the arenas. It won't make a difference to the players. So I think the fact that they won't have any fans in it, they won't be generating any heat. So I don't think you'll have any problems with fog or anything like that, like maybe you had sometime in the older arenas. So they can keep it as cold as they want, as long as the cameramen don't freeze, as long as some of the sports staff don't freeze. But I think they'll do that to kind of help the ice, and those buildings will be very, very cold throughout the day, I'm pretty sure. And that's another factor too. Can you keep that coldness? I know they've had issues with it at Rogers Place. The way they designed it doesn't really keep the cold in the building, and they put up some curtains and things like that. So, but I don't think the ice surface will. If there were fans, I think that would be a serious concern. but I think without fans, they're able to turn that temperature down, and those places will be like ice boxes in those arenas. I'm pretty sure, especially if they go to somewhere like Vegas, where it does get to 45 degrees Celsius during the summer. So I've been down in Vegas in June and July, and it's not particularly comfortable inside, so or outside per se. So it might be nice to go in somewhere nice and cool inside.
Mm-hmm. Do you know if all Oilers players who are in Canada are coming back to Edmonton for training now? I know a few players have been hitting the ice, and as to who scattered where, I imagine a lot of players went back home where they're from. I mean, outside of guys who went back home to Europe or the United States, like would Connor McDavid be coming back to Edmonton for some training?
That's a good question. I've heard some of the players have been able to secure ice somewhere else, so it's probably better off for them to stay where they are and work out on their own. I think as long as players are working out on their own, I don't really think it matters. I don't think that there's really an advantage of Connor McDavid coming up to Edmonton and skating with his teammates if it's only going to be 4 or 5 guys passing the puck around. I think once you get together as a big group, then yeah, he'll come back. But I think if he's getting the same benefits in Toronto, skating on a private ice surface that he's probably renting out, I'm sure with him or 3 or 4 of their buddies in Toronto, I think that'll be just as good. I can't see him coming here for that first stage of practices anyway with the 4 or 5 guys. I think he'll come here if the Oilers decide to have their training camp here in July. He'll come here in July and get together with the group. So, I don't see a point of, if it's only 4 or 5 guys skating at a time, I don't see the point of him coming back.
Yeah, it's kind of like, summer conditioning camp, whether you're in Gary Roberts', I'm not sure if Gary holds on ice stuff. I know he certainly does training, but whether you're, doing Perry Pern's camp here in Edmonton or whether you're back at home, that's the level we're at right now.
Yeah, exactly.
For the next month or so. Okay.
Yeah, doesn't really matter.